Okay. Problem of evil, short version. Alright, I heard someone complain today, saying that they could not believe in a God that allows murder, rape, child molestation, things like that to go on in the world. Now, is it bad that God has allowed free will to happen in our world? Obviously not. I think free will provides for the greatest possible thing to take place, and that's the love of God. Secondarily, the love of people. That can only exist in a world where there's free will. And love can be demonstrated in a place where there is an acknowledgement of the contrary, too, to where evil exists. If only love existed, if only love were possible, love would not be a special thing. I think love would cease to be love. So beings need to be free to choose God or choose against God. Now, with atheism, the complaint stems from the objective basis of morality. They say it's wrong that somebody got murdered. Why is it wrong? On atheism, for one, humans do not have a human value. They don't have their dignity because we're an accidental byproduct of natural occurrences, an undirected process. Dignity does not come from that. Dignity comes from intention. Value comes from something intentional and something acknowledged by a mind. What are some reasons that God might have for allowing it temporarily? And I think there's a couple. I think one for the non-believer, as C.S. Lewis has said, that God whispers to us in our pleasure and screams at us in our pain. We become aware of God when we are humbled, when we're brought low, when we cease to trust in ourselves and our own power. And I think sometimes pain brings that out in us. I think for those that do believe in God, He uses suffering and challenges and pain as a way to refine our character and to make us more like Him and to turn us into people that are ready for His kingdom and to ultimately bring glory to Him. God also is able to demonstrate His love and His comfort in the midst of these types of sufferings that people go through. So it proves our character, it challenges us to look toward Him, and it also demonstrates God's character and His ability to supernaturally comfort His people in the midst of trials. Now, is God evil since He allows for a certain murder to take place? But we act as if God never intervenes in stopping murders and things like that. If you've heard every threat that a person has made on whether it's bringing a gun to school, threats toward wanting to literally kill somebody, threats toward literally wanting to rape somebody, and the percentage of those things that actually take place, I think it may be possible that God is intervening in a good percentage of those situations. Now, the ones that do take place, again, God foreknows the situation taking place. He allows for certain amounts of free will in people, and I think we're supposed to be aware of the evil that goes on in our world so that we can understand how to transcend it and to be above it by God's grace. Now, He's able to comfort. He's also able to bring to justice those that perform the evil, which is something that an atheistic worldview would not be able to bring about, because at the end of this life, that's it. Like it talks about in Ecclesiastes, we end up in the same spot, no matter if we've done good or done evil on this earth. Now, that's the context of atheism. On theism, God's able to bring ultimate justice, and the justice is in His hands, and He knows how to bring it about. Now, God needs to allow for this certain amount of free will so that we can freely choose Him. And remember that God is He's not in this context of a temporal life as we are. So something going on in this life, like Paul talks about, with all the sufferings that he went through, a trial that goes about in this life from God's perspective is pretty minuscule compared to what can be gained in eternity. So God's able to transcend our suffering and bring a supernatural comfort. I've seen it happen. He's able to bring to justice those that have performed the evil. He has sufficient reason for allowing it temporarily, for the acknowledging of His character, for the refining of our character, and for bringing about His purposes in as far as humbling people to look toward Him. The existence of suffering and evil is not evidence against God's existence. The moral law that it's based on is evidence for God's existence. And if we look toward it, the comfort that comes through these situations is great evidence toward His existence too, on a more subjective level.
Another point to consider before writing off the existence of suffering as being contradictory to the existence of God is that in the context of suffering, the greatest possible good can actually be demonstrated, which is love. In suffering, we prove what we love, we prove what's important to us, and demonstrations of love are made by the type of sacrifice that is able to be given toward the object that love is poured out to. And I think the ultimate example of this is Jesus pouring His life out in an excruciating way for his people as a ransom for us. We'll cover the significance of His sacrifice in a different video, but it's just to say that as the Bible says, no man has greater love than to lay down his life for his friends. Laying down of a life is probably the ultimate type of suffering, and God Himself submitted Himself to that, submitted Jesus to that, to be able to show that He is love. And when we go out of our comfort zone to maybe support people and to have a sort of community, we show our love in that way too. And I think if everybody were self-sufficient and had no issues, we would lack a sense of community, and we would lack a sense of fellowship and strengthening of each other, and love wouldn't be able to be demonstrated to the extent that it is in a world that has some deficiencies. And the last point would be the existence of suffering and evil and hardships. It lets us know that this world is not home. The goal of our life is not this temporal existence, but it's a resurrection that God has destined us to after this. It's a salvation that He has chosen for us. So if this world didn't have any hardships or suffering or evil in it, we wouldn't be able to distinguish it from heaven, from the kingdom that God has for us ultimately. And now I think we get the privilege of seeing a world where God's presence is only manifested partially. And when that day comes for ultimate salvation, we're taken up to purely be in His presence. We'll see just the smokescreen that this world is compared to that.